Hey, what's going on, everyone? Matt here with the Lazy Lab podcast, and I am joined today by our guest Alanna Strei, who is the residential real estate expert. And I'm so excited to pick her brain and have a conversation with her around that. But also, she happens to be a Navy veteran as well, so we have that going on. As you know, Lazy Lab is all about serving the men and women who served the armed forces and the country. So, fun show today. Very excited. Alanna, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Absolutely. Now, I'd be in the wrong and probably get yelled at by Matt if I did not mention that this episode is being brought to us by Ubora Coffee Roasters, one of our proud sponsors of the Lazy Lab podcast. So, shout out to Ubora Coffee Roasters. If you haven't had their coffee, it's very good. They provide it for all of our events and keeps us caffeinated while we're in the field looking for animals, usually not having much luck finding them. But by the time we do, we're wide awake and wired, ready for the hunt. So, Alanna, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Lazy Lab podcast. This happens to be episode 7. And today we're going to talk about you and residential real estate and all the fun stuff that goes along with that. But first, before we jump into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your service, how you know the organization or our presidente, Matt Mitchelson.
Well, thank you again for having me, Matt. And I also appreciate Matt Mitchelson for having me and for thinking of me. His wife, Bree, and I served together when we were both active duty Navy officers. And so we got to do a fun deployment and we got to be on a ship together. And so that is how I got introduced to the Mitchelson family. And I got introduced to Lazy Lab after I had gotten out and Matt had kind of brought together this amazing organization. He reached out to me because he was applying for the University of Southern California, MBV, so a Master of Business for Veterans program. And I was a graduate of cohort 3, and it was a total game changer for me. I was getting out of active duty and I was getting into real estate. And so I was happy to write him a recommendation letter, hearing what you guys are doing here at Lazy Lab. And so that's how I kind of got connected. And when he found out that I specialize not demographically like most realtors, not geographically like most realtors, but demographically, working with veterans, fellow active duty out there trying to invest and use their VA loans to build their futures so they can eventually secure a retirement that's not just dependent on our military retirement. He pinged me to see what I can do for you guys. So I look forward to being a resource.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. I was just talking to him earlier today about how I'm going through my own little real estate crises. So it'll be good to kind of pick your brain, but also, I mean, real estate in itself is very, it's very tricky waters to traverse. Like I always kind of cringe a little bit when people are like, I don't know, I think I'm going to do a for sale by owner. I'm like, that seems crazy to me. It's like giving yourself your own medicine or something. I don't know. If my transmission broke on my car, I wouldn't also go fix it, and I would hire someone to do that for me. So, trust the experts. But okay, so you served with Bree, who's Matt's wife, in the Navy, and you did how many years in the Navy?
I was active from 2008 to 2015, and I became a reservist. Then I got out in 2018 officially.
Why did you get out?
If anyone else has done ROTC, we owe our initial 4-year commitment from when I got in. So I believe it's 5 years now. And so I hit that. And then every year beyond that went toward my GI Bill. So when I maxed out my GI Bill, I dropped my papers and then I went to reserves. And then, frankly, residential real estate, I didn't realize how happy I would be. And so for me, I got out of reserves. I was just so happy. I still was working with the veteran community, and I was still really, really satisfied with my work-life balance. Got a little bit better, as everyone can imagine.
Yeah. So that's really cool. I have a really good buddy I served with who stuck around in San Antonio after he retired from the Air Force and has been killing it in the residential real estate market, especially like Military City, USA, San Antonio. Like he cleans up with the veterans. And loves what he does. And one of the things you just said, like the work-life balance aspect of it. So naturally, you probably set your own hours a little bit. Like you can work, I would imagine, as hard as you are into working or as little as you're into working. Like how's that gameplay in residential real estate? Like, how do you set your hours?
I'm going to say this in the most politically appropriate, PC way, right? The way that all of us public affairs officers were, and I was a SWO, so I was a surface warfare officer, but I was always collateral duty PAO. I love a good story. I love a good reshaping, but it's very different to work as hard as you want to and be fiscally rewarded for the amount of work that you put in, as opposed to getting paid the same as somebody else who has a different, different, right? They have a different pathway and they're leaving at 3 p.m. every day and you're not. The difference is truly you work as hard as you do, but the important part is the discipline that you get from being in the military and not leaving till the job's done. And I didn't realize that was military specific. I had no idea until I got out and I started doing that, and people were surprised. And I was like, you were allowed to go home in your old job? Because we just slept there. So I don't know what you guys are used to.
Yeah, it's I will say, like, being on the civilian side of things, there are certain aspects that just translate very well. You know, like people are like, I can't believe that you just like, that's how you do things. That's how you operate. Like, yeah, I don't even think twice about it. I've had my manager now, to your point, like, has had to tell me before, like, hey, you don't need to like check in with me at the end of the day to see if there's anything else going on. Like, if you've done what you wanted to get done, like, you just go home. Like, oh, okay. Well, I'm just trying to be, a good employee here. You know, I don't know the boundaries. Like, so it's definitely something to figure out. Do you find that in real estate? Like, do you think that's something that you find yourself doing? You're like, I don't know, is there more that I should be doing today? Or how do you cut that off and just go home?
Unfortunately, mine's the opposite direction, since I am my own manager and my own assistant and so forth. And that's obviously not true. If you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant. So that's kind of how I started off. But I'm at the point now where I do have a team underneath me. But the difference is, when I transitioned out, you go from a military, I'm paid every 2 weeks. Like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. But then all of a sudden you're autonomous. So I think what was the biggest struggle for me was really enjoying not waking up at 5:30. And
I love that part.
like, that was the best part. But it was also like, okay, if you sit there and you watch TV and you just don't do anything. So I actually overcorrected, because for a SWO, and I understand all the branches are different, so I'm sure you guys have something comparable. Our job was to be jack of all trades. So whether or not I was the assistant chief engineer or the electrical officer or the admin officer, I just had to learn what to do. And there's still like a process. And with real estate, I made it a mission. I didn't listen to any music unless I was working out. I only listened to podcasts and books on tape. I didn't read anything fiction. I only read nonfiction books and like trade books and trade magazines. So I might be laying out at the pool, but I was reading a trade magazine, and that was like the freedom of the autonomy. And so I think you actually kind of end up working harder in the beginning, because you want to overcorrect and still kind of keep that, like, I want to be really good at what I'm doing. I'm learning something new. And frankly, like with the military, if you mess up in diesel engineering school and somebody gets burned because you didn't know that this was supposed to be that, like, that's your responsibility. If I mess up now, that's someone's life savings. That's someone's $1,000. That's somebody's obligation. So I really take it just as seriously. And that's why it's like, and I get to go shopping for a living. So for me, it was a very easy transition.
Yeah, that's a good point. You feel like you're kind of left on your own for like the training and figuring out, like, hey, the learning curve of how to get good at this career field is definitely all on me. There's definitely a gap there. Like, they expect that, oh, you came out of school, like, you're ready to go. Like, you should understand enough about the industry. And we really, as veterans, have to figure that out, right? It's like, I got some gaps I need to fill, because you're coming in not entry level. You're coming in like mid-career, late career level, depending on when you got out of the military. That changes the game for you and the learning curve. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, you're mid-career, but you have no industry experience. They don't care. Like, they're like, you're mid-career, you need to teach yourself to fill in the gaps for that lack of industry experience. So with someone like leaving the military, they want to do residential real estate. What's the advice? What are you telling them right now? I would imagine, especially right now in today's market, it's got to be one of those fields where people are like, oh, I'm just going to go into real estate, and they may be making some mistakes. Like, what kind of person should go into residential real estate, and what tips do you have for them if they make that decision?
I can't advise specifically to that direct question, Matt, because I don't want to deter anybody who might not be
Sure.
how I am, right? But for me, I always worked a second job when I was active duty. And so I might have been your lieutenant that you saluted at work, but I was working retail at the mall because I just really enjoyed that servant leadership aspect of it. And I enjoyed a lot of the sales. And so if you naturally have always been inclined towards sales and entrepreneurship, you might find that this is something that's going to be really appealing to you. The best part about real estate is there is no barrier to entry. You need a GED, which I believe you need to get into the military anyway. So you're probably already qualified there. The test itself in California, only California I'm speaking, but is 6 weeks long in the training process, and it's inexpensive relatively, but I'm sure you could use TA or any of your veteran benefits if you were getting out to study for it. And then if you fail the test, people are so intimidated by the real estate test, right? It's so scary. It's like, oh man, like people have tests. If you fail it, just take it again.
Take it again. Yeah.
Don't put it on your social media. Just take it again. It doesn't matter. What I would say, you need to be intrinsically motivated. And you need to want to keep pursuing it, and you need to keep doing that continuing education. No one's going to tell you what to do next, and people really struggle. And I would say as well, what I have read advice-wise and what coaches have told me is 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months truly of savings for what your current lifestyle is. In my situation when I was getting out, so if you're a JO, you might be really exactly at this level. If you are, if you're petty officer, if you just did your 4 years and you got out, you might not be as set up as I was, but that doesn't mean this isn't an option for you. Right. I was doing the GI Bill, right? So I got out to the GI Bill. You cannot use your GI Bill to qualify for a VA loan, so don't get confused over there. But I was doing the GI Bill. I was Airbnb-ing my second bedroom, and I was getting disability. And then I was still a reservist. So I was making $65,000 a year without income from real estate. So just set yourself up right. And if you're not, people read desperation left and right. We've all been to a bar or a club. So it's kind of like that. If people realize you're just out there just educating them and teaching them and helping them, they're never going to feel like they don't want to work with you. So your job is to make sure you're good to go on the back end. So you just come off like an educating, presentable, just a really helpful person, and people will flock.
Cool. Yeah. The sales piece of it, I think maybe the way I phrased the question, probably not the best. Like, what kind of person should do it? No, but like character, you don't have what it takes. But like characteristics, like those important characteristics, and being like a self-starter, being someone who's able to be intrinsically motivated to be successful, right? You're willing to do what it takes to make the sale. That's the thing. Like there's definitely, if you've never done sales before, you have to like have that confidence that what you're selling is the best thing for that person, which I think in real estate can be tough for some people, because you're talking about like a home and something they're going into, and you have to sell them on the benefits of the home that they're looking at. At the end of the day, you're paid by whether or not someone gets the mortgage and buys the home or pays cash for what have you. You have to show them all the bright things instead of being, the kind of person, oh, yeah, that is kind of a problem. I do see how that slopes to the left a little, what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is, you can't, you got to find a way to put a good spin on stuff. So maybe you got to be a little bit of an optimist as well, and see things like through a silver lining, or, a different lens, if you will. So it's a fun job then. It sounds like it's fun. When I talk to my buddy, he always says like, it always sounds like he's having the time of his life. Is it cool to like the new challenge, like each property that you get or try to sell, or when you take a buyer into take on new buyers, is it cool, like the challenge of trying to find them something? Everyone's favorite realtor should be Phil Dunphy, right? From Modern Family, right? If you haven't seen Modern Family, listeners, viewers, first look in the mirror, question your life choices, and then second, go watch it, streaming on Peacock. But that must be neat to like work with people that are looking for a home, and then find, like, helping them find one. I would imagine that's very rewarding.
I think the most surprising part is when I receive gifts from my clients afterward and they say thank you to me, because I'm like, this is my job. This is my career. That's the rewarding part. And I think, and this also is like very self-serving to acknowledge, but like there is nothing more rewarding than somebody that I worked with when I was active duty a decade ago. I have a closing today. That's literally somebody we served together a decade ago. And she reached out to me and she said, I saw on social media that you're in real estate and there's no one else I trust. We did it remotely. Like there's a lot of video showings, that kind of stuff. And I think if you really focus on the veteran market, yeah, I mean, that's honest to God, the best part is you can go and if you follow the rules, like if anyone has real estate questions, Matt will put my contact information up. I'm building a team and I'm willing to train nationally as well. But the bottom line is if you act with integrity and you're always out there educating yourself, you don't have to sell anything. I don't sell, I educate. I go through and I teach you and I say like, hey, here's your best option. This might not be the right time for you, but this might be why this is, and this might be the right way to do it. It's not a sale, right? I mean, to me, the education is like, you're going to pitch yourself. Once I give you all the data, pitch yourself, and I'm just here to facilitate.
So representing, there's two sides to real estate, right? You represent a buyer, you represent a seller. And I would imagine representing a buyer might be easier because they're already in the mode, like they're already there to buy, whereas representing a seller, like you're looking for the positive aspects. Is that kind of fair, that representation of real estate?
Well, I think that a huge part of, like I said, I focus on VA demographically. And so we are all used to being good people and we focus on integrity and we have honor, courage, and commitment if you're in the Navy. And so if you call me and you say you're a buyer, I am educating you during that part and I'm walking you through it. If you're a seller, you know, the bad thing, kind of what you were saying, is like it's a bunch of pitches. There's a bunch of realtors. Everyone's got this sign, I'm the best listing agent, blah, blah. Like,
right.
When it comes down to it, like we're all putting your thing on Zillow and putting a sign. Like that's not what it's about. What it's about is your negotiating skills in the back end. And so if you connect with every person, and like I think the fun part is buyers if they're not defeated. And I think anyone who's listening to this, if they've been following the stock market, the housing market, they know what chaos it's been. Sellers are easy right now, but there's nothing worse than saying no to 24 people and saying yes to the 25th. Like we're military. We all like care about our own and we don't like to be mean. So I would say like both sides are super, super rewarding. You're either making a bunch of money for somebody or helping somebody get their dream home and build their future. So yeah, it might be like more money than they planned on, but like building your future is a huge deal. And with an opportunity like the VA loan and nothing down, why wouldn't you? But I would just say like both sides are fun. I think they just have really different aspects to them.
Yeah, I would say like in my own personal dealings, it's always been one of those things where like buying a home is scary because there's that investment and you're like, oh boy, like here we go. This is a huge obligation. And so there's that, but there's also excitement because you're going into something new and it's like you have blank canvas and
you're doing it for a reason, right? I mean, most people who are buying, it's because their family's expanding, they're moving up, they're getting married. There's usually really, really joyful reasons for buying. So that might be fun.
But on the selling side, to the points you're making earlier, like it's always been about feeling comfortable with the person that's going to be selling my home, right? And that's where it's like you had said, like you kind of are marketing yourself versus marketing pitch or the property or whatever. Like that's always been the main anxiety feature of selling a home. It's not how long it sits or what have you. It's like, is this person really representing my house and my interests? And, do I feel comfortable with them, like being the person that sells my home, this very important investment that's in my life? Like if this goes wrong, it could be horrible, so there's, a realtor is like such an important person to you, like at that junction in your life where there's a lot of change happening. You need them to have those values of integrity and courage and honor and trust, that they're going to have those values while they take care of you and look out for your interests. So, well worth the commission in my experience. What you referenced, like doing training or doing a transaction over Zoom, or remotely, like how has that been? Like, I want to go back like over the last year, like what's that been like? That's got to be that had to have been challenging at first, but maybe awesome at the
My
same
answer
time?
is going to be so disappointing. It's been normal. Nothing has changed. I have had so many transactions that have been via Zoom I've been licensed since 2016. I think that we touched on that a little bit. I got out, became a reserve, licensed in 2016. I ended up winning some local awards. And so I had already gotten some really good social media advocacy from peers that have been stationed across the country. So like I never had to really worry about referrals or business. And so when we had a closing that was, I'll make it brief, but we had a closing that happened in May, and it was in North Park, San Diego, which if you're familiar with it is right by, it has gotten really, really beautiful and popular. And this is a 780 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. It was $980,000. I have never, $1 million, right? And they had done a garage conversion. So there's no garage anymore. The garage is an ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit, if you're not familiar with it, but it's a rental unit. And so it's in this like very cute boutique area in San Diego. So $1 million for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, less than 800 square feet.
That's crazy.
So here's the best part. This was a referral from a referral. And we had never met in real life. And we did the Zoom call and we had the real discussion. And honestly, if you are talking to a realtor, or if you want to be a realtor, go in with like, just be genuine. Like if you get bad vibes from somebody, don't work with them. Like it's not easy, and it's okay to not connect with everybody. And if you're a realtor, it's okay to not connect with everybody. You don't want someone who is resistant to working with you, because it's the 80-20 rule, right? They'll be 80% of your work and like literally just a brief amount of your profit, and take you away from the people that truly value your value. But with these people, everything was totally remote. And when they got there, the girl literally, like the wife, who is also an officer. So excuse me for being
girl, woman, wife. I do the same thing. Like the guy, the dude, like I interchange them all the time.
The female borrower walked in the back and said that the photos didn't give it credit, the videos didn't give it credit, et cetera. So I think if you just always under promise and over deliver, then you're never going to have an issue with it. So I think the Zoom thing, if you imagine in California and especially in San Diego, you're in a house in 15 minutes and someone's waiting in line behind you and someone was there right before you. So maybe you get 8 minutes to see it. Wouldn't you rather have a Zoom and a FaceTime walkthrough and be able to review it as much as you want and just get measurements out in escrow? Like, why wouldn't that?
I'm sure it's expensive to get done, but like I always appreciate like the virtual tours of homes and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that's because I can sit at home, you know, in my pajamas with a cocktail and just scroll through the house and take my time and get an idea of at least the layout and the floor space that you have and where furniture might go. And then then I want to put boots on the ground and like walk through it. But
you don't have to. I'd say 60% of my transactions that closed in the last year did not see the house until after they purchased it.
Yeah, we bought a home in South Carolina that way, like when I went from Texas to South Carolina, and it turned out great. But it was definitely first time doing that and sketchy, you know, like a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
So it's interesting. Like I definitely get it. Like I think that you see a shift probably, right, where people are like, no, I'm okay with that, even as restrictions start to lift on being able to walk through spaces like that. I'm sure that people are like, no, I just prefer to do it by Zoom because people are private, you know, they enjoy having their own privacy. They enjoy being able to like do things on their own time, their own schedule. So are you doing these Zoom showings? Like, are those live or would they be recorded and then shared? Like, how would that be done?
We always accommodate our buyers' needs. So whether or not it's live and you do a FaceTime showing with them and then you do a recording afterward, and so you can send it to them for their own review, for them to show to their boyfriend or girlfriend or their parents or their husband or wife. And then frequently people can't do anything but a recorded video. And so if you can only do so much, and we try and keep it stable and we try and open the closets and so forth, but 15 minutes in, 15 minutes out is really, really normal out here. And so we will videotape it and we'll get all the answers for you. But we also, and I think you're in the real estate situation yourself right now, so you're familiar with it. But if you're buying or selling, you have a due diligence period. So you are, as long as we get your offer accepted, you're allowed to go in there and have an additional home inspection. We can do videotapes, we can do measurements. Yeah. So really our job is to go out there. My job as your agent is to go out there, represent you properly, protect your money, and then get your offer accepted so we can actually start, doing the nitty gritty. You're not going to be flushing toilets and checking drawer space during the initial walkthrough. So that's why I think it's really not scary to have it be just via video.
So how, like, here's a situation I'm going through right now. So when we moved to New Jersey, this is like just got out of the military, right? Mm-hmm. And my parents lived up here. My son was up here. And so it was like, okay, I need to be back here. That's the whole reason I got out of the military, was to be close to my kid. And we rented at first. I was like, oh, we'll rent. Like, I'm not ready to buy because things happen. Like, I don't know if the job's going to work out. I don't know if the kid's going to move, like his mom's going to move or something. Like, I don't know. Just don't know what's going to happen. So we rented, and we were in the home for like 2 years. And actually it's like 2 years next month. And the landlord wants to sell the home. I'm like, okay, well, I like the home. I like where we're at. I'll buy it from you. Right. So negotiated a price, great price for the lot, for the market. Everything was going great. It's on its own. It's like 2.5 acres, and it's a great property, good location. The VA required a septic inspection. It's running on a septic system. Okay. And I was like, okay, well, we were supposed to close like a week ago, and they wanted the septic inspection. So got that done in time. And then the results came back and it didn't pass. And it was like, oh, bummer. So we asked them to repair it. So we're in this weird situation where we're a tenant of this house, right? And we're under contract, like, to pay rent and all this stuff. And the septic needs to be in working order according to regulation. Like, it needs to be in passing state in order to be a landlord, to have tenants in the property, right?
Seems reasonable. I mean, that doesn't seem
reasonable. You should have so it was like, okay, this needs to be, you guys need to take care of this. This is like what I told the guy. I was like, you need to take care of this. And also, I can't buy the property if it's not repaired. I'm like, well, we're not going to repair it. You need to repair it. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Like, not my house. I'm not repairing it. It's like, there's no way, dude. Like, you're going to have to fix this. I live there currently, still under contract as a tenant. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. So now I'm like, okay, well, we're out of here. So they're listing the home. They listed it yesterday. Now we're showing it. Now we have a real estate agent showing it while we're still, like, our stuff's still in there. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to, like, have movers come pack it out or anything. So it's a very strange, this is my real estate crisis that I'm in. So it's a very strange situation, and I don't know how to proceed. Like, it sucks. It sucks. How do you go into what I wanted to ask is, like, okay, well, I feel really bad for, like, the real estate agent that they hired, because I still live there technically, and my stuff's still in there. What a horrible way to, like, show a property. But does it even matter in today's, like, climate and all that stuff? Like, how would you handle a situation like that, first of all?
I'm sorry for your loss of potential. Yeah, I'm sorry, because that stinks. It would have been awesome if it worked out. And I get the, like, emotional ties there are for the place that you've lived with your son for however long. I'm mean. Okay. So you want a mean real estate agent representing you. So you want somebody who's a little bit of a hard charger, if you will. And so if it's me, I don't know New Jersey's laws, but here in San Diego, if I, as a real estate agent, know something about the property, I must disclose it. So if I'm you, I'm disclosing that to the real estate agent up front. This septic will not pass a VA loan inspection. So VA buyers cannot come buy this property. And especially as a single family property here in California, everything is so expensive that single families are kind of like a pipe dream for first time VA buyers anyways. But once you know that kind of stuff is going on, nobody wants to get into a situation where the foundation is sloping or the roof is visibly leaking. So an appraiser will walk in and they'll look up and they'll look for stains on the roof. And if there are stains in the roof, they will ask for a roof inspection or proof that the roof has been recently modified.
Yeah.
So as the realtor, if I'm the buyer's agent, I'm like, run, like, let's get out of here. Like, or if they disclose it up front and then we're not doing a VA property and you hit me really close to home, because I'm in escrow on a 4-unit in South Park today. South Park is just south of that North Park place that I described earlier, but it's very, very boutique-y, there's a, custom flower shop and a coffee shop and like
Yeah.
3 different like slushy bar type places, all walking distance. And for me, using my VA loan to buy a multi-unit and put no money down and then make more money than I was going to be paying on my mortgage. I was going to net $1,200 a month and live there for free. And obviously not counting the tax benefits of being able to depreciate 3/4 of this $1 million+ dollar property. So I'm very interested in it. And a really similar thing happened. The appraiser came in and said to the seller, there's a 5-inch slope, just like you were joking about. I was like, oh man, you got the number right and everything. And he said, how can I loan on this? So I think for me as the realtor, I was willing to accept more risk than I would on behalf of my clients, but I know my comfort zone. And I was going to accept that risk, but I'm not trying to set myself up to get sued. But in your case, like I think being a respectful tenant, don't leave it messy and be kind about it. And especially in California, it's written into your lease that if the seller decides to sell while you're in there, the standard lease does say that you must be amenable to showings, but you need to have 24 hours notice. So being kind is cool, but also being a deceitful seller, as long as they're upfront about about the septic, I can't imagine not fixing it because everyone's going to have to find out about it anyway. So
it's a mandatory disclosure. That's the thing in New Jersey. So they have to tell someone about it. You're looking at like 20 to 30 grand to repair it. So, to me, no, I'm not going to just part with 20 to 30 grand for your problem. Like, it's not my problem yet. It's like,
and I mean, honestly, if you would buffer in a reduction in price and then take over that responsibility, and then he would remove all of his contingencies, and you're saving the 30 grand. But the beauty of the VA loan is not tying up that 30 grand when the market's going bananas and rates are 2.25. Why would I tie up money that can make me 10%?
So I told him, I was like, I don't think you understand. Like, I don't have to put any money down to buy this home. And you're selling it to me at a price that's like 100 grand below value. Like, I don't want to tie up 20 to 30 grand to fix it. That's definitely does not make sense for me. And then on top of that, like, who knows? Like, who knows what else is going to be found at that point? Like, it's one of those things. Like, I have to walk away from it because I don't know what else is going on. It just sucks because it was a good opportunity. I'm
very disappointed about this, and the guy did custom for me. So there's a turquoise walk-in shower that I do not think anyone else in their right mind is going to want, but it looks like Palm Beach, and I don't know who else is going to buy it, but we're pot committed, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, it sounds awesome. I definitely, how does that work? I guess with like the real estate prices in California. So let's talk about that for a second, because I'm in a similar type market, not as inflated as far as the pricing, but like
I'm going to take
New Jersey's expensive.
New Jersey's expensive, but your words mean things, and I know you know that, but we are not inflated. And if you've been tracking the California, and if you track coastal markets, we are not inflated. We are actually behind where we should be. And so we're finally starting to catch up and compete with the big boys. So if you consider San Diego County, and this is me getting defensive about it, but I think that educating yourself and being educated as a realtor is super important. So if you can't to this and make sure that you talk to a realtor, don't just talk to someone who's good at sales, talk to somebody who tracks your market, somebody who tracks your economy, somebody who knows. So in San Diego specifically, not one of our industries is more than 14% of our total industry. So even if we were to lose, so when we lost hospitality and tourism, we were still completely like, we were still rising tide lifts all boats. We have defense, we have military, we have biotech, we have healthcare, we have industries, all of that. And so for us, we're not inflated, we're playing catch up. And so your prices might be higher than they previously were, but we're still in it. And if you're buying across the country, if you know what's going on in your industry, that's how you're going to be most empowered to make the wisest decision. So I just invested in a syndication in North Carolina because they know that Google's going to be out there and that they're building this massive campus out there. And so for me, get in there and invest in a syndication in townhouses, and that's going to continue to grow because those are the young tech people.
So as far as like inflation, yes, the price of homes in California is very high, right? I think inflation, meaning for me, like right now, homes are selling way above what they've ever sold for in the past. So I think just real estate prices at the moment are much higher, and that's what I mean by inflation. So I don't mean just California. I just mean in general right now, if you're buying a home, you're going to pay more for it than you would have, 7 months ago, 8 months ago, 9 months ago. Not a real estate expert, but I do know that it's very much a seller's market at the moment because inventory is very low. And that is leading to sellers being able to name their price essentially in a lot of markets that are hot. New Jersey's no different, as I'm seeing, like, homes are selling for. If I looked at a home that was on the market a year ago, they decided to take it off because this happened. Like, that home was selling for 450. They put it back up again this year. It's on a lake. It's a beautiful home. It's great. I was very interested before, but they put it back up at like 575. To me, that's inflated based on current market value, right? The market will let it sell for that. It'll appraise for that for that price. But a year ago, I would have paid a lot less. It's me missing out on an opportunity, but that's what I mean by inflated, right? So if you take a market in California where the prices are already very high, it's expensive to live there. Like, how does the VA handle markets like that, where you could have 1,000 square foot property, 2-bedroom, 1-bath that sells for $1 million? Like, how does the VA handle that? With, like, they have like the jumbo loan, like the VA jumbo loan, I think is something USAA does. I didn't even look into it. I was like, I'm not interested in that. I don't want that. But it's just, I've always wondered about that. If I grew up in San Diego and, I went all over the world serving my country, and then I get out and I get a good job, I still maybe can't afford to get, using a VA loan, afford to get a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Is that how that works, or are there options? Thank you for letting me ask the question.
You could see I was holding my breath the whole time. I'm like, I have so many responses, and I was listening to your question, but I think that you have 3 different questions right here. The first question is a response to the statement that it's very expensive out here and prices are high, and that's relative. And I think just reminding ourselves, I might think it's very inexpensive to live in the Midwest because I've never lived there and my pay was proportionate, my costs are proportionate. I do think that if you move somewhere, if you're you're working at the same bank in La Jolla and the same bank in Nebraska, you're going to be paid proportionately more. And if you aren't and you're getting solicited by people, you need to look at the cost of living when you're getting out and see if you need that 30% increase. Because to me, if I'm getting recruited by Google and they're trying to get me to come to San Francisco, if I'm getting a 30% increase, that's like for like. Do I like the weather better here or San Francisco? I like the weather better here. 30% more isn't real money up there. So I think, like, perspective on seeing the money, it helps to really kind of take a step backward and see, like, hey, what does this really mean to me? And a good rule of thumb, and I'm going to say this out loud, and if you write it down, you're listening, you can quote me on it and you can fight me about it if things change. But right now, if your interest rate is below 3%, and this is California numbers, but say it's 2.5%, which you should probably be getting right now if you're working with the right mortgage broker. So we talked about jumbo loans, et cetera. That obviously fluctuates everything, and your debt to income ratio and your current credit score also matter as well. But basically, for every $100,000 you borrow, including taxes in San Diego counties, that's what I'm talking about, and then homeowners insurance in various places through San Diego County, you'd assume for every $100,000 you borrow, it's $500 a month. So maybe your $400,000 place is about $2,000 a month. And what does that get you out here versus what does that get you somewhere else? I can't tell you, but just perspective wise, what $400,000 gets you somewhere else, you're just going to chase, go where your quality of life is best for you and your family. The next question, how does the VA? So that's my first thing. It's just perspective, right? It's always, people are going, we were talking about how, things are so expensive and they're inflated, et cetera. Well, as things went like this, right? They were vertical. So if you can't see my arm right now, I'm going vertical, perpendicular to the sky right now. And before COVID, so January of 2020, California, they spoke about the housing crisis, lack of housing affordability. And they talked, and in San Diego specifically, they did the same thing. The mayor did it. The San Diego Association of Realtors did it. And so were we to get back to where we were then, imagine a 45-degree angle. And really imagine even a 60-degree angle, or I'm sorry, I guess 30 degrees downward. So basically your hand is nearly vertical. We were going that fast then. So now that we're at a right angle and we're going straight up, if things slow down a bit, you're going to hear everywhere, oh my gosh, things are slowing down. Like, oh, what's happening? Like, and that's not real. And it's not real. If you're chasing this, even if you wait because you're intimidated by the prices and the inflation, you're intimidated by all this, even if you wait and things go from a full vertical to a 45-degree angle, they've still been ticking upward month after month. So if I'm you as the buyer, I am buying at this 2.25% interest rate. So your purchasing power is really still super, super strong. Even if rates go up, your purchasing power will go down.
Sure.
And we're going to be months down that housing tracker. So your third arm, I was really proud of myself for remembering all of these. How does the VA protect you? You do have an FHA VA mandatory clause. And I can speak to the California Association of Realtors, but I believe nationally it's the same thing. It protects you. You are not on the hook for borrowing more than the purchase price or the appraised value, whichever one is lower. So the FHA VA mandatory clause, we call it the FVAC. It basically says you as a buyer are not required to continue with your contract if your property appraises below your purchase price. So if it appraises at $550 and we're in escrow at $600, you don't have to pay that extra $50K. If you want to make it work, do it. But if not, the VA is protecting you.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of flexibility in real estate, right? Like if you want to make a transaction work, cash is king in a lot of situations, right? The bank is going to come forward with what they're willing to accept as far as risk and the loan itself. And then you have to come up with ways to make it work between you and the seller. And sometimes that means you got to come out of pocket if you really want to see it get across the line. I think that's a good point. One of the things I wanted to go back to real quick is like the thing that it's all relative, right? Because I agree with you. I think it is definitely relative to current condition and everything. What I would say as a consideration to that as well is if you're buying a home, right? A lot of companies did not do a good job of compensating or adjusting comp, raising comp for employees coming out of 2020, given like market uncertainty and, hits in sales and layoffs and all the stuff that went on in the economy during the pandemic. Right. And so right now what you're seeing, and I don't know if this is typical for other periods of time, right? I just know for this period of time right now, compensation for employees and cost of living is last to catch up, right? It's going to be last to catch up. So if I do my end of year review and then I get a cost of living bump and then I get, compensated for what the market is now to buy a home, to buy a gallon of milk, what have you, performance incentive-based bonuses, that kind of stuff, that's all going to be last to catch up. And then I can go and buy a home, right, at the current market value. But like the market in real estate now, home prices up here, what was $400K, maybe $500K this year, I may not be able to afford that extra $500 because I haven't been compensated by my company because they were being conservative in the way that they dealt that out to their employees based on the COVID climate of the economy. So there are a lot of factors at play. And when it's a buyer's market, I would imagine that you have a little more leverage, obviously, in the price and getting a deal for that meets your income level, meets you at your price versus right now where it's like, okay, well, we only got one PlayStation 5 left and we get to name our price on that because we got a line of 30 people that want to buy it right now. So I don't know why I use PS5 as an example. I just know that there's like, there's a lot of issues with supply and demand in that as well. What I'll give you a chance. It looks like you have more that you want to add to or tell me I'm dead wrong.
A month not to be dismissive. So the PS5 thing, I think I just heard about on Wall Street Journal or something. So it totally made sense to me. I said it not to be dismissive, but just to be relative about what I find the most frustrating is that people move to really desirable areas and then they're frustrated with the prices and they're frustrated with the cost of living. And I think it's really, this is my own rant, nothing to do with real estate or Lazy Lab or anything like that. But my rant is it's really frustrating when people are entitled because they think something is expensive because they think they deserve it at a certain price. And so if you go in there and your perspective is based upon your monthly payment and not on seeing 500 grand versus 400 grand, if you are realistic, when I bought this place that I'm in right now with 15-foot ceilings, and it's ground floor in East Village, which means that I have homeless visitors, like it's not perfect. When I bought this place, my rate was 3.125. And so my interest rate for a property that has gone up $20,000, $30,000 in value in the year and a half since I bought it, right? Because the market is doing what the market's doing. My payment is still the same because rates have gone down. And that's why I really focus on perspective. Is like, we should be so grateful about how low these interest rates are. And my worry about anyone who's listening is if you get into that mindset of, oh, if I'd only bought it, and I'm not saying you're like this, Matt, but like, if I'd only bought a couple of years ago, oh, things are going to slow down, blah, blah. You will get priced out of the market as soon as interest rates creep up. And the more money you're borrowing, the bigger impact it's going to have. So that's what I want to protect people from is like, yeah, there might be more inventory and there might be less competition. But when you can no longer afford those payments, it doesn't matter if the number in the front was a 4, 5, 6, or 7. If the payment was same at a 5 and a 4, but now you're borrowing for a 5, but your rate is so much lower. Why would you ever shoot yourself in the foot by trying to be obstinate about like gaming the housing market timing?
It still remains like one of the most solid investments you'll ever make in your life is to invest in property, right? And if you can, that interest rate, especially on a 30-year fixed, is extremely important because it will save you thousands and thousands of dollars over the life of that loan. I couldn't agree more. I think that it's important that buyers consider all, to me, this is how I am anyways. I consider all aspects of it, right? It's like, okay, well, the interest rate is great. Can I stomach the payment? Like, can I make it work within my budget?
Exactly.
Is the home a good home? Like, is it solid? Am I getting screwed on this deal? Like, am I going to find out later that there's like some issue? Am I setting myself up and protecting myself in this investment? So there's a lot of different things that I try to consider, but you shouldn't just, I need a home, I buy a home. Like you should think about all these things so that you feel happy. You feel at peace with your decision to make this large investment, right? It's something that is and can be life-changing, both for good or for bad, if you don't make all the careful considerations prior to jumping into it.
That's why I think the payment is so important, is don't ever over obligate yourself. And if you're getting out of the military, make sure you start your disability filing early. That can have huge impacts on your taxes, property taxes all over the country. And so being honest about that with yourself and just kind of being your own advocate makes a huge difference. And then I agree with you about not impulse buying. I also think that what people forget is with a VA loan and nothing down, it's unlikely you will be able to cover your entire mortgage with a renter. So if you're going to be somewhere for 18 months, you need to really understand that market and make sure that you know what you're doing, because the last thing you want to do is get a San Diego mortgage and then get stationed in North Carolina and your BAH just is cut by, into a third of its former, and you're eating $1,000 a month. And that's really prohibitive for people. And then on top of that, make sure you do speak to a trusted tax advisor, because the tax benefits of owning a home, especially if Biden's new plan comes into play, there are so many wonderful benefits that we don't all know about until we start pulling that string. And then make sure you work with a realtor that understands the VA loan, because I bought my first house with an FHA loan because my realtor just didn't know how to pull the string. My dad's a retired 06. They own quite a bit of real estate, and they've never used their VA loan because they weren't educated. So being your own advocate and educating yourself is a real thing. And I wouldn't say use the big banks. I would say go out there and do the footwork yourself, meet a trusted advisor and speak to them that way. Big banks keep bankers' hours.
That is true. That is true. Someone who works for a big bank.
Oh yeah.
I definitely know about that. I think it's great advice and obviously something that you'll want to do. I also use a great guy that was referred to me as a real estate lawyer who helps kind of keep the I's dotted and the T's crossed and make sure I'm not getting into bad situations, sticky situations. I get a great flat rate with him on real estate transactions. So definitely something to look into as well. I'm not sure if you do that a lot or if you think people should just trust the real estate agent to do that part. I'm not sure. Where do you stand on that?
So it varies state by state. California is one of 2 states that don't use real estate lawyers. So we never meet the sellers in the transaction as the sellers. If you meet the buyers, something's gone wrong. If the buyers are probably creeping up on your front yard, so probably don't answer the door kind of thing. But we use an escrow company and we use title.
Okay.
And other states use lawyers. But that's also why I helped my parents with a transaction in Virginia and last Christmas. And Virginia is county by county. So you can't even see separately. And so they aren't even licensed to so I was reading all of their contracts and things are just different. So use all of the resources that you can. Yeah. I know people I've read some things that are oh, don't trust referrals. It might be someone's sister, someone's mother, I'm being completely misogynistic. It might be someone's uncle for all it matters. But I think that's actually a really horrible attitude. And I think if somebody had a great experience by someone who is professional, organized, and educated, what more do you want? And and personally, as someone who works with only referrals and has a team that works with my referrals in our sphere of influence, if I mess up one person, I have just cut off an entire pipeline. If I buy someone off of Zillow, or if I buy a lead off of Redfin or whatever that is, and then I screw up, they're not going to go tell all their friends. They're just going to pick somebody else and click that button again. So I think as consumers, it's our responsibility to go out there and find trust but verify, right?
Absolutely. 100%. Well, look, I know we could definitely go for a long time talking about this, and I want to be mindful of time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Awesome advice, awesome conversation. There's so much to learn about real estate, and it's the reason why you have real estate agents, because they're there to help you traverse something that you may only do 6 times, in your life, and maybe that's on the high side. It's not something you do every day. So definitely trust the experts. Any advice or parting thoughts for the audience?
My favorite quote is, don't wait and buy real estate and wait. Unless you're a very educated investor, do not go in there and think that with this crazy market, you're going to go in and jump back out. The market will get its money one way or the other. And so just be respectful, be responsible, and also understand, read your contracts, which we all know as military, not hard, but a lot of people don't do it. And also, I really do think there's so much credence to having the right energy with somebody and vibing with them really well. If you don't feel like you're being educated, listened to, somebody doesn't have time for you, that's okay. It's okay. And it's okay to move on. It's okay to transition with them, but act with integrity and you'll get treated the same way.
Love it. Awesome advice. And I love the quote. I wrote it down. It's going to be awesome to use. This has been the Lazy Lab podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm Matt Kuchera, the host. Our guest today was Alanna Strei, and residential real estate expert. Information in the description down below for the episode. So go check her out, throw her some questions if you have them. I'm sure you do. And thank you again to Ubora Coffee Roasters for providing sponsorship for today's episode of the Lazy Lab podcast. Please be sure to throw a subscribe. I'm tripping on my words today. A like, hit the little bell, tell all your friends about it. I don't really care how you do it, just do it. So it helps us get the word out for this great show. Until next time, stay safe and God bless.